You just spent good money on the best looking, most realistic lures at the tackle shop. They look absolutely perfect in the package. But when you tie them on and cast them out, the fish completely ignore them. Or worse, they scatter and swim away terrified. Listen to me. The problem is not the brand of the lure, and it is almost never the color. The problem is that you are fishing a piece of plastic like it is a piece of plastic, instead of making it act like a living, breathing, vulnerable piece of prey. Today I am going to show you the 10 beginner lure fishing mistakes that are completely killing your action, and exactly how to bring those baits to life to force predatory fish to strike. Before we fix your technique, hit that subscribe button and tap the like button so you never miss another straight-to-the-point fishing guide. Let's get to work. Tip number 1, stop the zombie retrieve. The most common mistake beginners make with a new lure is casting it out, engaging the reel, and just turning the handle at the exact same monotonous speed all the way back to the bank. Crank, crank, crank. I call this the zombie retrieve. Nothing in nature moves like a robot on a conveyor belt. Predatory fish like bass have incredibly sensitive lateral lines that detect vibrations. When they feel a perfectly mechanical, repeating rhythm, their instincts tell them it is unnatural and fake. Real prey panics. It darts, it trembles, and it changes speed. You need to become the life of the lure. Add erratic movements by twitching the tip of your rod downward as you reel. Speed up for 3 turns of the handle, then slow down. Make that lure look like a panicked bait fish trying to escape, not a robot on a treadmill. Tip number 2, you are ignoring the power of the pause. This goes hand in hand with the zombie retrieve. A bass will often follow a moving lure for 10 or 20 feet, just staring at it, trying to decide if it is worth the energy to attack. If you never stop reeling, the bass will just follow it right up to your feet and swim away. Here is the golden rule of lure fishing. 90% of your strikes are going to happen the exact millisecond your lure stops moving. In the wild, when a bait fish is injured or exhausted, it stops swimming and flutters down. That pause is the ultimate trigger for a predator because it signals an easy, defenseless meal. Whether you are using a crankbait, a swim bait, or a jerk bait, you must aggressively pause your retrieve for 1 or 2 full seconds. Stop reeling. Let the bait sit there. That moment of suspension is when the fish will absolutely crush it. Tip number 3, you are choking your lure with the wrong knot and hardware. A lot of beginners are terrified of losing their lures, so they tie massive, tight knots directly to the eyelet of the bait, or they use giant steel snap swivels. When you tie a tight standard knot directly to a crankbait or a topwater walking bait, you are effectively putting a tight leash on its neck. You choke out its ability to wiggle back and forth. If you use a giant steel snap, the heavy metal will weigh down the nose of the lure and completely ruin its natural buoyancy. To fix this, you need to learn how to tie a non-slip loop knot. A loop knot leaves a small, open circle of line connected to the lure, acting like a free-swinging hinge. This allows the bait to dart and wobble exactly how the manufacturer designed it to. If you must use hardware to change baits quickly, use tiny, weightless finesse clips, never giant steel swivels. Tip number 4, fishing over or under the fish. When you use live bait, the bait swims around and finds the fish. When you use artificial lures, you have to put the bait exactly where the fish are. The water column has a top, a middle, and a bottom. If the baits are glued to the bottom in 15 feet of water, throwing a topwater frog on the surface is a complete waste of time. They are not going to swim up 15 feet to eat it. Conversely, if the fish are hunting near the surface, dragging a heavy plastic worm in the deep mud will get you ignored. You have to match your lure's diving depth to the depth where the fish are holding. If you aren't getting bit on top, switch to a diving crankbait. If that doesn't work, switch to a heavy jig and fish the bottom. Find the right floor of the elevator. Tip number 5, obsessing over color instead of profile. Beginners will spend 30 minutes sitting on the bank, swapping a light green lure for a dark green lure, convinced that the exact shade of paint is the reason they aren't catching fish. The truth is, color is the very last thing a fish processes. The first thing they notice is the vibration. The second is the profile, meaning the size and shape of the silhouette. If the bass in your local pond are feeding on tiny 2-inch silver minnows, and you are throwing a massive 8-inch dark green swim bait, they are going to ignore it. The profile is wrong. The rule is called match the hatch. Look in the shallow water, see what the natural bait fish look like in terms of size and shape, and pick a lure that mimics that silhouette. Get the size right first, and worry about the exact color later. Tip number 6, fishing plastics like live bait. Because beginners are often taught to fish with live worms under a bobber, they carry that exact same mentality over to soft plastic lures. They will cast a plastic worm out into the middle of the lake, let it sink, and then just sit there, waiting for a fish to swim by and eat it. But a piece of plastic has no heartbeat, no natural smell, and no independent movement. If you just let it sit in the mud, it is just a piece of trash. When fishing artificials, you are the engine. You have to actively drag that plastic along the bottom, hopping it over rocks and through the grass. You need to make multiple casts in a fan pattern to cover the entire area. And if you do not get a bite, you need to physically pick up your gear and walk down the bank to find the fish. Be an active hunter, not a passive waiter. Tip number 7, the treble hook tear. This is a heartbreaking mistake. Lures like crankbaits and jerkbaits have treble hooks. Those are the hooks with 3 small points. Because the points are small, they do not penetrate very deep. If you are using a very stiff, heavy power fishing rod and you feel a bite on a treble hook lure, your instinct is to yank the rod back as hard as humanly possible. Because the rod is stiff and does not bend, that massive transfer of energy goes straight to those tiny hooks, and you will physically tear the hooks right out of the fish's thin mouth. When fishing with treble hooks, you need a rod with a moderate action, meaning the rod bends deeply like a parabolic bow. And when you get a bite, do not violently jerk the rod. Just smoothly and firmly sweep the rod to the side and keep reeling. Let the bend of the rod keep the fish pinned without tearing its mouth. Tip number 8, fishing with salad. This sounds silly, but it destroys your chances every single day. You make a cast, your lure ticks a weed bed, and you reel it in. You notice a tiny piece of green grass or a little string of moss stuck to the hook. You are tired, so you don't bother picking it off and you just cast it right back out. Listen to me. A living bait fish does not swim through the water wearing a mustache of dead grass. Predatory fish are visually sharp. If they see a crankbait wobbling unnaturally because it is dragging a piece of moss, the illusion is completely shattered. They will not bite. You must have the discipline to clean your lure perfectly. It needs to be 100% free of debris on every single cast. Tip number 9, the 5-minute swap. We have all been guilty of this. You tie on a brand new chatterbait, you cast it 5 times, you don't catch a fish, so you reel it in and immediately cut the line to tie on something else. You end up spending 70% of your day looking at your tackle box and tying knots, and only 30% of your day actually fishing. You have to give a technique time to work. Fish move in waves. If you chose a lure that matches the size of the local bait and reaches the right depth, trust your decision. Commit to fishing that lure thoroughly for at least 30 to 40 minutes in a high percentage area before you decide it is the wrong bait. Confidence catches more fish than constantly swapping gear. Tip number 10, casting into the void. Because artificial lures are expensive, beginners cast them exclusively into wide open, completely empty water to avoid getting snagged. But wide open water is a desert. Big fish hide in thick grass, under docks, and deep inside submerged trees. Furthermore, one of the greatest triggers for a bass to strike an artificial lure is called deflection. Deflection is when your lure is swimming along and physically crashes into a rock or bounces off a submerged tree branch. That sudden, erratic change in direction mimics a baitfish making a panicked mistake. Bass lose their minds when a lure deflects off cover. If you are only casting into the safe, empty void, you will never get deflection strikes. You have to risk your lures. Cast them right into the dangerous cover, bump them off the wood, grind them into the rocks, and get ready for the bite. Lure fishing isn't about tricking a fish with a pretty paint job. It's about convincing their primal instincts that your piece of plastic is alive, vulnerable, and trying to escape. Master these movements, eliminate the mechanical errors, and you will absolutely transform the way you catch fish. Now, I want to hear from you. Which lure in your tackle box do you struggle with the most? Is it a spinnerbait, a frog, or something else? Let me know down in the comments, and I might make a dedicated video breaking it down. Thanks for watching, hit the water this weekend, and tight lines.